Bais. He teaches in Columbia or whatever. So he has this whole theory of the stamayim, he calls them, the stomach the Talmud. He tries to prove that after the Talmud was finished, that we have added in things from the stamayim that they added in. And it's usually not as the same sort of logic that's used in the actual when there's a name associated to it. Anyway, it's a weak. You have one assumption, you build everything on the one assumption, and then it's just like, but it's very small. The premise is very. So anyway.
Did he do it for a doctorate?
Yeah, that's what it. No one can compare to his knowledge, and he's a tremendous, knows Shas by heart, and all of that. Okay, so Mar Baravashi is the end, the very end, the last of the right before the Talmud is sealed. Mar Baravashi, the bottom of the page. So he would be asking to this. This is sort of a proof to his theory that all of this is the end of the Talmud. There's no name attached. So Mar Baravashi asks, really, we can say that a treifa and a mesukenes is the same thing. There's a problem. When the Torah says you can't eat a treifa, it means you can't eat a sick animal. So he said, why do we need to say that a nevela is forbidden? We already said while it's sick, it's forbidden. And there's a negative prohibition there. Why do we need to say that? It's not a problem, because there's a different sort of nevela. Sometimes a nevela dies because it was a sick animal and died, and sometimes it gets killed. See, we were ignoring that category. We kept saying that a sick animal ends up dying if it was not kosher while it was sick. Of course, it's not kosher when it's dead. No, there's two types of nevelas. One was sick and died. The other one, the heichidami, what would be the case? Shasa gistra, you came along with an axe and you chopped the animal in half and you killed it, but it was never sick. That's a different din. That was never forbidden while it was alive. So the Gemara says, Hasamnami, you can't say that it was perfectly healthy. Why? Mikami delifsik ruba. Because before you cut half the animal, when you only cut a quarter of the animal, and it was still could live, possibly, but nevertheless it was terribly sick. So as you're taking the axe through the animal, right, and you're chopping the animal in half while it's alive, it was also ill, very ill, because of the gash in its back and whatever. So there's no such thing as an animal that dies without being ill beforehand, unless, of course, it's shechted or the category of a treifa or whatever. Okay, so we did away with that, and we have the proof that it's permitted because mesukenes. If mesukenes would have been forbidden, then why do we need to say a treifa and nevela? It must be, and we know that that's not the same as a mesukenes, so it must be that a mesukenes is permitted. Iba Yasema, if you want, say, or I could say, Imkain lema chelev nevela v'treifa. Why does it have to say chelev nevela or chelev treifa? There's an extra time it says chelev there. So chelev lamali. Why does it have to say chelev twice? The fat of a nevela and of a treifa. Doesn't have to say
just say chelev nevela v'treifa.
Right. You could just say chelev nevela treifa. Lamali. So it's coming to say zuhi shein chel b'chalak mi basara. It's coming to tell me that this is specifically a case where the fat is not separated from the flesh, which means that there's the prohibition of chelev was there from the beginning. But I do have another one where the fat is separated from the flesh, which means that the flesh is permissible and the fat is forbidden. And what would that be? Ve'ezuzum. Notice the extra word is telling me that there are animals here that are prohibited. The fat and the flesh are prohibited, and there are animals that the fat is prohibited, but the flesh is permitted. Now, which animal would this be referring to? It would be referring to a sick animal that's actually permitted. Because the extra word is telling me that it's only in this instance where that that there is another instance where the flesh should be permissible, even though the fat's forbidden. Okay. Iba Yasema, you could have another source of why a sick animal should be permitted. Mehacha. Okay, now this is an interesting chapter in Ezekiel where Yecheskel goes through these sufferings, and where he puts himself self-inflicted sufferings is, but either it's to take away from the suffering that the Jewish people are about to suffer. So Hashem tells him you should lay on one side, and he says take barley and you should roast it over human feces, coals from human feces. Anyway, Yecheskel says, Va'imar, he says, aha. I was like, whoa. Hashem Alekim.
I ain't doing that. I'll be a prophet, but that.
But woe is not the way. Woe is not
Wasn't in my contract.
in the surprise woe. Woe is like, woe is to me, like a lament. Hashem Alekim, hini nafshi lai mituma. My soul is not impure. I never ate a nevelo in a treifa from my youth until now. And I never ate pigel. He was a kayan. The Gemara is going to explain that it's not necessarily pigel. What the Gemara wants to do here is it wants to say that Yecheskel isn't saying that he kept the laws. Yecheskel needs to be saying that he went beyond the law. So we have to go into what is the beyond the law.
Must have been there at every shekel. Right?
So it says Hine nafshi lai mituma. The first step is my soul wasn't impure. It says Shleir harti bayoim ubasi lidei tuma balayla. He never had thoughts that would have caused him to have a mission by night. So Taisvus asks over here that seems to be a prohibition itself. Why is it saying that this is something that he did extra? So he says, well, what he means to say is that because it's unlikely to be saved from this, so that's why he's saying that he never was impure. He never thought by day to make himself impure by night. That those thoughts would cause an impurity by night. I never ate a neveler treifa. What does that mean? Kais means shecht. I never ate an animal where the people were saying, quickly, shecht it, before it dies. Because it's about to die. I never did a rush shechita like that. So.
Like a quick davening.
It's funny you didn't say that. Okay. V'leibabafi basar pigel. I never ate, basar pigel never came to my mouth. No, pigel is a prohibition. So when the Kayan thinks that it's going to be eaten out of its time, or it says, what does this mean? I never ate from an animal where the sage that was permitting it had to think about it, because those thoughts he had thought, just like pigel is forbidden thoughts, the sage that was deliberating over this had thoughts that this is impure. He wouldn't eat it even if the thoughts were not.
Wow.
The thoughts of this food were not appropriate. Were not kosher. You can imagine the
How do you know?
how sensitive he was to the thoughts that went into the food preparation. So he would know, because if you bring it to the Chacham to look at it, and he says, I'm not sure, let me get a Shulchan Aruch. Or he had to think about it. So then that would be, it's actually, the commentaries say that it's not if it was clearly a law. It's only when he had to decide based on his own understanding. Because then he had to deliberate. That would be the stringency. Mishum Rab Nasan Amru, he never ate from an animal that the gifts to the Kayan weren't removed. There's gifts that are given to a Kayan from every animal. It's the Zroya, the arm, the L'chaim, the cheek, and the Keva, which is a part of the stomach. Those are given to the Kayan. Now, the animal could be eaten before they're given. It's not like Truma where everything is. However, nevertheless, it should be given. So he never ate from an animal before it was given. And even though he was a Kayan, so he had a way out. Nevertheless, it had to be separated and given. This is Yecheskel. Now, Iyamrit Bishleim Sharia, if we say that an animal that's rushing to be shechted is permissible, a sick animal, Hainu Rabusa di Yecheskel, that's the Chiddush of Yecheskel. Ela Iyamrit Asira, but if we say that it's forbidden, my Rabusa di Yecheskel, then what's the Chiddush? Yecheskel didn't eat treif? It must be that it was permitted. Very interesting. The Gemara now asks, we're done, by the way, so all that complicated the back and forth of how do we know that it's permissible. We had several reasons over here, whether it's because it wouldn't need to say treifa, whether it's from chelev, the extra word of chelev, or from Yecheskel. The Gemara now asks, Heichi dami mesukenes, what's the case of a sick animal? Amar Rav Yehuda Marav, this is important in here, on the Amaroi Bavel. So you have Rav on the top. You take it down to the center. It's like the second generation here. Rav Yehuda, it says under it Pumpadisa. So Rav Yehuda says in the name of Rav. Very, very common for Rav Yehuda to talk in the name of Rav.
They lived about the same time.
As who?
They lived 50 years
Oh,
apart.
yeah, it's a student.
They
A
probably
direct
crossed.
student. He was a major student of Rav. Although, you see, the bold one would be the most important, Rav Huna, who took over Rav.
Same city, different city.
Well, what happened was, Rav was in Surah, and after Rav died, Rav Yehuda didn't stay on with Rav Huna. He went to Shmuel. But after Shmuel died, he made the Nahardoi was destroyed by some army that came in, and Rabbi Yehuda is the founder of the yeshiva in Pumpadisa. Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rav, Kol shema mida ma'isa ve'ena imedes. Any animal that you stand up and it can't stand, that's considered a sick animal. Rav Chanina bar Shalmei mishmei de Rav Amar. He's not in here because he's not as common. But he says in the name of Rav, and it's only mishmei de Rav, that means he wasn't a direct student. He says, Afilu oicheles bekas, even if it's eating wood chips or pieces of wood, that means it has strong teeth, so it's healthy. It's able to chew on that. But nevertheless, if you can't stand it up, it's still considered a sick animal, and you need to look for those signs to make sure that the shechita was good. Rami bar Yecheskel Amar. I don't see him. I think the Gemara tells us that Rami bar Yecheskel had like Dehu Rami bar Goria, Dehu Rami bar this, Dehu. The Gemara says he had a bunch of names, but nevertheless I don't see him in here. So Rami bar Yecheskel Amar Afilu Oicheles Kairos, even if he's eating beans, he's still considered a sick animal because he can't stand. Now the Gemara says the commentaries say that beams actually means hearts of palm. Now because they would munch through the palm to get the hearts. That's what it means. The Gemara in Brachas talks about what bracha you make on hearts of palm, and it calls it kaira. So that would be.
What's the bracha? It's not.
We say hadama in the. If you learn the Gemara, it's shahakal, but we say hadama, and the reason is because in those days they didn't plant it for the heart. Today, because it's an industrial, it's planted. If you would go to Brazil or wherever they're growing this and just cut a tree and eat it, you would make a shackle because you cut the guy's tree down, and he was waiting to get his dates, and so it'll take another bunch of years till he gets his dates. So you would say shackle. We say adama.
You're saying because they would grow it for.
They grow it specifically. You don't say a hates on a tree. You only on the fruit of the tree. Or if you eat a leaf off a tree, you don't say hates.
Moringa.
Well, on moringa, what do you say on moringa? I say adama on the leaves. Okay.
Tree, yeah, moringa tree.
Besura.
Tree.
We'll bring it in next week.
Let me just finish this. Besura, in the city of Surah, they actually learned this different. Besura masni hachi. That's the way it was taught. But Pumpadisa masni hachi. But in Pumpadisa, the way this was set over is the following. It's basically the same thing. They just skip one of the names. Heichi damya misukenes. What's the case of misukenes? Some Rabbi Yudah Marav. Rabbi Yudah says in the name of Rav. Kol shemamida ma'isaveinei medes. Va'afilu echeles b'kais. If you stand it up and it can't stand, even if it's eating those chips. So we skipped Rav Chanina bar Shalmei's name. Rabbi Yehuda himself said this. Rabbi Bar Yechezkel amar afilu echeles kairos. Rabbi Bar Yechezkel says even if it eats hearts of palm, it's still considered sick if it can't stand. Okay.
Wait. Oh, yeah.
Shakaya.
What's the